Did a bunch of
Oh, I can't wait to
schoolwork
see it.
today.
Whoa, nice. Man, you look better with a haircut like that than I do. My hairline is like way up here. So if I try to do what you did, I would just look like an eggplant. It'd be terrible. When do you get that?
Today, when I
Oh,
did a bunch of other stuff.
oh, nice. How are things? None of my business if it's not my business, but how are things going with you otherwise, just at home and stuff?
Um, um, I'm trying to think of a tactful way to say it. So my mom and dad aren't living together anymore, so that happened.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me that was on the horizon. I'm sorry to hear that, but I think you said last time that that might be a good thing
Yeah,
in
I'm
terms of
hoping in the long
peace at
term.
home kind of thing. That's rough, man. I've been
Yeah,
through that as a kid and a parent, and that can be brutal. Yeah, I know you're being tough and
yeah.
probably
Honestly,
feeling
after this, I'm going to go play video games and try and drown everything out.
really, eh?
Yeah, I got the new Harry Potter game,
Ooh, what's it called again? Something Hogwarts?
Hogwarts Legacy. I think. I don't know.
Very cool.
Honestly, I got
Yeah.
it simply because I liked previous Potter games, and this one got a lot of publicity because people are trying to trash it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're
No, they
trying to
always got to
trash it
trash
because,
something
well,
that's
no,
good.
they're trashing it because J.K. Rowling's transphobe or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I have feelings about that, but anyway, I feel like
I honestly don't
we
understand the logic behind that because I'm pretty sure Tolkien was a racist and no one's banning his shit.
we would have to get rid of virtually
Everything.
every writer, every filmmaker, like I mean, I'm all
We'd have
about
to
being
delete everything that wasn't about 20 years ago.
yeah.
Also, I'm pretty
We
sure
have to
Plato was like pro-slavery, so like take a look at
Oh,
that.
you basically I love the way one guy I was at Bard on the Beach 3 years ago, Shakespeare in the Park, and they had just done Taming of the Shrew, which is famously, without going into it too much, Shakespeare's story about how a wild and out of control woman is tamed by her husband, and finally comes out and is a proper lady when the play's done. Not one of Shakespeare's finer moments. I love Shakespeare,
Don't they usually
but
do that with like the tomboy boy girl in high school, and then she gets with like the football captain, and she becomes all girly and shit?
sure, exactly. But most of the modern movies will say that she shouldn't have to try to become something for. Anyway, long story short, the way they did the play was brilliant. They actually turned it somehow managed to flip it in a really organic way to totally work in the modern world. Anyway, there was an after play discussion where a bunch of people were who had come to see the play were sitting in the crowd, and they had like an SFU professor on English literature. They had the woman who played the main character, who is a very famous, totally balanced feminist, like a really sweet person. I know her personally, and not afraid of anybody. And she got up, and there was a bunch of people up at the front talking about the play. And one person in the audience got up and said, "Well, I wonder if maybe we just shouldn't show that play anymore. Like we should just kind of ban Taming of the Shrew." And I was like, and then the SFU professor stood up, and the woman who played Kate is her name, is the character's name. He stood up and he said, "Look, I appreciate where you're coming from, and there's no question that as a society we needed to try not to bully or victimize people, show respect, show dignity, etc., etc. But somehow we have taken that good idea and we've turned it into now a cudgel that we beat anybody who disagrees with us over the head and we cancel them right out." And he said, if we were to consistently stop listening to or reading or watching everybody who was guilty of something that was not politically correct, you would have to cancel everything before about 5 minutes ago, and then
Yeah.
set your watch because you're going to have to do the same thing 5 minutes later. You're going to erase all of history if eventually. So I just, and I am all for representation and fairness
Oh yeah.
and respect and all of those things.
I
But
decided my
whew,
character to stuff by dice rolls.
there you go. Like, yeah, and the J.K. Rowling thing is a classic example of people like, yep, no, let's destroy J.K. Rowling, but you better destroy Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Roald Dahl, who was a famous no Charlie in the Chocolate Factory because he was a racist, and the list goes on,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Honestly,
insane.
my opinion of J.K. Rowling after she finished the last book, stop paying attention to her. Like seriously, the tweet about wizards like just taking dumps all around Hogwarts and then magicking it away. That was the moment we just stopped listening to whatever she has to say.
Yeah, or not. I mean, she's a person, like her work doesn't suddenly become invalid.
Oh
Like,
no, of course
speaking of
not.
which, I just saw the new Flash trailer. I don't know if you've seen the Super Bowl trailer for Flash.
I heard of it. I didn't see it.
I mean, it makes it look like the movie's going to be amazing, but of course, there's a bunch of people who are all over Ezra Miller, and him, I understand a little better because there's allegations that are pretty extreme with him. But there was one person who said, "Look, I'm going to go see the movie because I love the character and I love the movie. But if you get a chance to watch the trailer later, check it out because it looks amazing." I've watched it about a million times
Oh,
today.
it's DC. It's DC movies Flash, not Arrowverse Flash. I like the Arrowverse
No,
stuff better.
you'll like this. Let's just put it this way: there's a couple Easter eggs in this trailer that are gonna be pretty exciting for you. I think it's like when I saw that Bill Murray is gonna be in the new Ant-Man movie. I was like, what?
Mm. Yeah,
Unbelievable. Okay, let me pull this
honestly,
up.
it feels like a lot of the superhero stuff just kind of died off with COVID.
Yeah, it's either good. Yeah, Marvel went through this weird. It was a weird period, that's for sure. A few movies, and then now they're starting to get their moj
Like,
back, which is nice.
What if was good, and then everything after that sucked.
I like Spider-Man No Way Home.
I didn't like the ending because that for me that killed like all the character development we had with all the other characters.
Yeah, it's a weird ending.
Yeah, like I would have been happier with all like a bunch of Spider-Man villains show up, and then we get like a Green Goblin rematch, and then like we end with the note that Peter's going to have to go in search of all his other alternate versions supervillains, and then that's it.
That's the whole thing. It just spirals off into the multiverse. Crazy. I just realized the shirt you're wearing. Sheldon, I love it. All right. Are you on your ball? You are on your ball.
I'm
Yeah,
now
that's
on the
good.
ball.
All right, let's go through this. Nice changes here. Really nice changes. Love the stuff right off the hop. I'm like, oh yeah, because you're like me on your first draft. I in my first draft of everything, I have everybody say everything. And then I realize, okay, the drama is often more intense and more satisfying if we don't have characters saying everything and it's just implied. Trust the reader, trust the audience to do the math. So a change like this, where it's just an uncomfortable silence defends on the room. And he goes right to call Daphne, which of course we talked about last week. That's golden. Takes a bunch of stuff out you didn't need, and it just cuts right because it's just like dead silence as everybody looks around. It was amazing. Gonna go call Daphne. Who's Daphne? So here's a little change. A suggestion: take or leave this. This is not essential at all. I thought rather than have because there's a lot of explaining going on in this
Mm-hmm.
chapter, and I'm always trying to find a balance in my own writing between explaining stuff versus watching fun stuff happen. You can take or leave this. Who's Daphne? She's one of the BPA board members. Borges is in charge. Blah, blah, blah. Do we like her? Yes. Then later, when he says, "Who's he talking to?" He's another one of the board members. You know,
Okay, yeah.
and do we like him? No. Just gets her more in there. Okay, so the one big suggestion I would have is the big thing I was looking for in this, assuming you wanted to do it, was that while Dick and Ramona are talking, the majority of what they're talking about has to do with Julius and his background and so on. I love this. So she asked the question, like she doesn't clearly understand why Julius would be pissed off at her for killing Matthias. For some reason, I thought he had explained that
Nope.
to her in that last chapter, so that works. The challenge is all I wanted to know was this. Supposedly, Matthias had information regarding potential alien attack on Earth. When you killed him, we cut off our only source of information on the subject. That's it. So, like, this stuff is interesting. But so I orange highlighted all the stuff that I kind of think isn't necessary to know. All this stuff about Ramona killing Matthias is they get into an art. So Dick immediately has gone because of this conversation is here. Dick has immediately gone from being this sort of trying to keep the waters clear and just smooth it over so they can get into the plane. He gets into a full-blown conversation / argument. So now Dick's no longer neutral after this conversation is the vibe I got. And I thought it was don't wait, because like this whole thing sort of exploring the ethics of Matthias and vampires and creatures of the night and all of this stuff. I thought, how long ago did she ask the question? So we go through a page, nearly 2 pages before we finally get the answer, and it was a bunch of stuff that it felt kind of throwaway to me, this conversation. So I think I would, for me, I would accent. I don't mean to in any way discredit the hard work you put into this. So I don't mean to just say fuck it, it's gone. But to me, I'm like, oh no, the only two things I want to know about are great question. Why is he mad at me? Oh, that's a great question. So I wanted the answer to that. And then I was like, okay, can't wait to read about Julius. And what I got was I got two sentences about the one thing. And then we got this. We got two sentences about Julius. And then more conversation. Then there was more talk about Wolves and Matthias. And I'm like, Matthias is done. Let's move on from Matthias. The only thing I really care about now with Matthias, like if my suggestion would be anything that she feels about Matthias, that would have been great in the hospital scene back when she was probably feeling what she was feeling for Matthias. And it feels like, oh no, we've moved past that. I don't need to hear anything about how she felt about Matthias. I would love to hear them talk about the thing I was looking forward to, which is Julius. And we got two sentences.
What specifically would you like to hear about Julius? Because
So I'm glad you asked. So here's some suggestions. So things like, for example, why is he mad at me? Well, you kind of fucked up his investigation of Matthias. Is he always this grumpy? Da 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 da. Now we can get into a conversation. Well, how long have he and Dick known each other? What was he like when he started? How long has he been with? Like all this actually juicy, important, valuable kind of information about the BPA and about Julius, his background, what he's done, why he is the way he is. Anything about a family? No family? Okay, that's good to know. Anything that humanizes him, rather than what I think it's 1, 2, 3, nearly 4 pages of
yeah,
stuff about Matthias.
I went into the ethics of the BPA instead of
Yeah,
Julius.
and so yeah, and it feels like then it turned into an ethics lesson rather than a kind of a meaningful conversation about the thing that seems to be. He's just barked at her and he's kind of thrown shade at her in a phone call with whoever this baker is that everybody hates. So if I'm Ramona, I'm not thinking about Matthias. I'm thinking about, says, well, you kind of fucked up his investigation. You killed a guy who kind of knew everything. Well, knew what? Can you tell me what he thought? Wait a minute, you're telling me that I killed a guy that potentially could have saved the human race? Wow, what? Like that would be good to hear. And he's like, and either Dick answers or he just says, that's classified. I can't tell you any more than that. That's okay. At least that's an answer. But which would then lead to a conversation about Julius. So is he always this way? Geez, I can't figure this. Honestly, Dick, can I be honest with you? I can't figure this guy out. 1 minute he's helped saving my life, then he's taking care of me in a hospital. Then he's freaking out at me because I just killed this guy who took me, and I thought he would like that. I thought he would understand why I had to kill this guy, and I still don't even know why he's so mad at me. I don't even know why they pulled me and why he wanted to arrest me. Like, what the hell, man? So if I'm Ramona, I've got about 1 million questions, and so what I would do, my encouragement would be, just plant yourself in Ramona's brain for whatever length of time you need. Forget the story, like put aside the story for a minute. Don't write anymore for a sec, because I think what's happening potentially, I do this too, is you're quite determined to write it. But the challenge is if we move too fast with the writing, we never stop to really understand what it is we're writing. So I would be getting into Ramona's head and say, okay, if I was Ramona and I had been through what Ramona's been through these first 10 chapters, what list of questions would I have in my head that I would be dying to have answered? I think that's where you get your list of questions. But there's a bunch about Julius. There's a bunch about the BPA. There's a bunch about what's this? I killed a guy who, potentially had the secrets to unlock saving the human race. That sounds important. Even if Dick doesn't tell her because he can't, or maybe he does. But to me, that's what they should be talking about potentially, but not for pages and pages. And even if you just kept it to one, I'm not saying she should ask that whole list of questions in this. I'm saying that she's got a bunch of questions that at some point somebody's going to have to answer for her. And I'm going to be surprised as a reader why she's not asking them, because you're asking the reader to identify with Ramona. Okay, I'll identify with Ramona. I've got 1 million questions. And if she doesn't ask them, she's either stupid or they were answered already and you should tell me that, or something. Because what we're about to enter into is a very frictional relationship between Julius and her over the next few pages. And that's what I would like to see. Like right now, if all I hear is he's had a hard life, shitty parents, makes him a bit of an ass, but you won't find a better agent or a truer friend, that sounds like a great ending to what he says about Julius, but
Mhm.
it doesn't sound like the whole thing, and it certainly doesn't sound like enough to make her. Um, she's not even thinking. The very next thought isn't even about Julius. It's still more about Matthias.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, that's what I do. Plus, it sounds like she's really like come full circle. She's almost her entire character arc has been taken care of in about 3 pages. She would have to judge people supernatural otherwise on their own merits and not in the stories people told about them. It's a great point, but none of that came from her thinking about Julius. It all came from her thinking about Matthias and one very
Mhm.
brief little exchange about Julius.
And maybe
So Matthias is
maybe
getting,
have her spread out her arc more.
yeah, like I want to
Because
see,
everything
like I
that's about to happen is going to justify her blindly following doctrine.
she's going to blindly follow Doctrine from this point on.
Well, no, I said everything that's about to happen is going to justify that. Like, aliens come from the sky and they immediately try and
Gotcha.
probe you or whatever.
Yeah, that's great. So for her, I think it's sort of an echo of what I said last week, but to me, he's really, and Julius has really ruffled her feathers. Well, let's go back here, like without going through all of this. Yeah, he's really like got her back up. Like she's like, fuck, man, I signed up for this. Like I can almost see her afterwards. He says, what can you do? And then Julius goes and calls Daphne. And I feel like the next thing that would happen is I'm going to go call Daphne and find out what happened. And I feel like rather than Ramona going, "Who's Daphne?" the first thing that she would say after Julius left was, "Fuck, man, what is with this guy? Like, I have this. Come on, can I work with you, Dick, or something?" Because it's like she would be secondarily interested in Daphne, and I think the audience would want her to be secondarily involved interested in Daphne. She just got her ass reamed out in no uncertain terms by Julius, and she's like, "So who's Daphne?" Not this girl, not anymore. This girl's put up with shit from men way too long, and she's not putting up with it anymore. So even out of earshot, she wants to kill this. Like I'm thinking, not really kill this guy, but she could. She's got to be thinking about it. She flips beds and lifts cars for fun, rips ghouls around cemeteries, and killed Matthias. She's not entertaining at least a little bit of a thought of malice towards this guy who just tore her a new asshole. So to me, that would be it. Then it's interesting because then if she's like, I don't want to work with this guy, fuck this guy, I'm too old for this shit, or whatever else like that. And Dick could like calm her down, kind of thing. Like he says, look, I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel, but you gotta. I mean, I totally understand, but I mean, you gotta understand where Julius is coming from, etc.
Hmm.
And then leading into a point, and I would focus it around one story. What I don't mean you should do this, but what some stories will do is say, yeah, he's a cantankerous old cunt who hates everybody he talks to, but that's because he watches his child killed in front of him. Don't do that. But I'm simply saying it's the kind of thing where a woman would go, oh, he's like, but there better be a good explanation for why he's a cunt. Yeah, his kid was killed in front of him. Oh my God. What? Yeah, so when you work with him, just understand that he's a little rough around the edges, but he'd take a bullet for you any day of the week. And it's the kind of thing that makes her go, holy fuck. So when he comes back, continuing to rip her in more assholes, she's like, okay, boss, whatever you say. And he's like, and he shoots Dick a look like, what did you say to her? And then they move on. That's it. And like, so that kind of a thing, yeah, would be what I
Okay,
would
so
do.
so
And
basically, Ramona talks Julius. Dick calms her down. Dick explains some of Julius's past. I'm honestly not sure which part. The lots of dead partners, the abusive parents, World War II. Any suggestions?
I'm just going to write this down as we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. Julius doesn't have one big thing. Like, the closest thing he has to one big thing is finding out his parents basically used him as a test subject.
Perfect. There it is. That's the one.
Yeah,
That's that.
like
It's
that was like 100+ years ago for him. So I can't. I'm pretty sure he can't keep. Also, like part of Julius's thing is like he's getting worn down from like people leaving. Yep.
So I would say, yeah, I don't want to twist your arm and say it should be one thing, but if you're gonna change Ramona's mind, if you're gonna give her sort of if you're gonna de-escalate her and say, and get her to a point where she's like, oh my God, there's more to this guy than I realize. I need to maybe get to know him a little better, or whatever else like that. The only thing I'm nervous about is like he's an asshole because he's been working a long time. Oh, oh wow. Now I get him. No, like so I don't want to create a thing that would be uncomfortable for you. Stay with it. But
Yeah.
I don't care if
So
he's 500 years old. I don't care if he's 1,000 years old. If my parents did something like that and gave, like, yeah, if this guy has never gotten over it, he's never gotten over it. Doesn't matter how old he is.
well,
So
strictly speaking, his parents pulled out his soul and replaced it with a philosopher's stone.
okay, yeah, no, there you go.
So
Like
he's not even technically the real Julius.
so Rocket, I mean, even a series of movies as goofy as Guardians of the Galaxy, with all of that wacky humor and throwing things around. At Deadpool, another great example. Deadpool is the most outrageous maverick good guy, bad guy in maybe ever in comics. And yet, look at how that movie put something in the center of his life that immediately went, whoa, this guy's like, I get it. I get it. He had cancer. He lost the love of his wife. That's the magic of Deadpool. Everybody forgets that the reason people love Deadpool isn't just because he goes fuckity fuck fuck and cuts people in half and it's Ryan Reynolds. The reason we love Deadpool is all of that clustered around a simple, really sad story that I can connect with. And that's why we care about Deadpool. Otherwise, we wouldn't care. So if with Julius, if he's just an old cunt because
He's an old cunt.
he's an old cunt. Well, then, okay, I guess, but there's no way Ramona would go along with that. And there's nothing that humanizes him that makes me care about him, not just Ramona, but me. And so you've got it. You've got it already. And, like, look at, what is it? Rock.
How to put that in simple words without like opening the box for like a whole other line of questioning about philosopher's stones and shit. Like, what I just say his parents abused him.
Well, his parents, when he was young, his parents sold him, I wouldn't give any of the details. I wouldn't go into any of the science, any of the details, any of the story stuff. Just tell a simple story, and Dick is intentionally hiding the details. His parents abandoned him
His parents
to a group of
experimented on
scientists.
him.
Yeah, they,
They
and
had a
he never
child for
saw.
the explicit purpose of having a human lab rat,
Yeah,
and that was the
in its
first 20 years of his life.
in its simplest terms, whatever else happened to him, he was a young child who was abandoned, and even worse, sold. I knew a guy when I was working in Alberta. I worked on the rigs with a guy whose parents sold him into slavery in Somalia, and he managed to escape Canada. His parents sold him, and I said, "Oh my God, what was? Are, how are you now with that?" And he goes, I've gotten past it, but I'll have trust issues for the rest of my life. I'll never get married. I never want to have a family. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. This guy has been seriously damaged by that. So, Julius, all jokes and everything else aside, that's huge. And Julius can act all tough and say it's about losing his partners. And that's probably part of it too. And well, I've just been doing this a long time. That's what he would tell you. But that's not why he's the way he is. He's the way he is because he's never gotten over that feeling of total. So this guy, if Julius was to ever see people mistreat a child, it's probably why it was partly his protective urge for Ramona because she's not that old. But if he ever saw adults hurting a child, I believe that Julius would become irrationally enraged and not
Them.
even remember what he did.
Nope, he just shoots
Yeah.
them. Same with Nazis.
Like, exactly. So no matter how level-headed he is, and I'll buy the book. I know he's not by the book, but no matter how professional he might be in any other situation, the one thing he has complete Achilles heel emotional trigger every time is seeing a child mistreated. And Ramona, being a woman, especially if she starts this whole thing, I want to fucking kill this guy. I want to tear him apart. And Dick's like, well, slow down. I understand, but there's something you need to understand about him. Tell that story, a page max, move on, and back from the phone call he comes, and well, I guess I got to take you, and he's still the same ornery fucking guy he was before, but suddenly Ramona's changed. Not radically. She doesn't suddenly like him and never argues with him again. Please don't do that. And I know you won't. But if he comes back and she doesn't, he's expecting her to lose it at him and she doesn't. Um, like I would love it if she started giving him sass before he says, "Hang on, gotta make a phone call." And she's like, "Dick, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy." And when he comes back, he's sure when he gets off the phone, "Oh my God, now I got to deal with Ramona, who fucking hates me too." Gets off the phone. He says, "Okay, now before you lose your cool, I just want you to know I got to take you with me." And Ramona goes, "Okay, I understand. I'll come with you." And Julius is like, "Huh? What?" Because he doesn't know what Dick just told her, but he suspects. And he looks at Dick and he's like, "Fuck you. Did you say anything?" He's like, "Okay, let's go."
Hmm.
That's short, tight. I bet your chapter probably becomes 6 pages max, and and to me it shouldn't be probably any longer than that, or whatever, thereabouts.
Hmm.
So that's probably what I would recommend here. And that one little pivot, to me, you're good to go after that, because I think that really, really kills it at that point. And the end with Remy works.
Perfect.
So you carry on like that.
Uh,
Um,
did, did you get to the interlude? By the way.
Sick here. I started to read it. I went through this. I'll finish it no later than tomorrow and give you the notes on that.
Okay.
Julie, I love the gist of it. I love the gist of it, and I love that you have it in there. I'm not shocked, but
By the way, I just realized I need to make a quick edit. I need to change the alchemist's name to Puck. Well, his code name. 2 reasons. I just realized calling the guy the alchemist when Julius is literally like the alchemist already is going to get confusing.
to just call him the alchemist.
Yeah, when Julius is also kind of like a, a big alchemist. So yeah, it's a bit confusing. I'm just going to
Okay,
rename him Puck. It's both a nod to who it's going to turn out to be, and because it's fairly accurate.
I love that. Plus, it's a Shakespeare character. I love it for that reason.
Yeah.
Um, let's do this right now. Actually, let me just go through it. It's not that long, so bear with
No,
me
it's
for
like
just
3 pages.
be real quick here. So just quick feedback here. I think my suggestion is going to be that this be tagged on the end of the previous chapter rather than be an interlude per se, and I'll share with you why. Um, just food for thought. A couple of quick things. Any chance our manipulation will be discovered? Um, I thought our plan might be better. Manipulation sounds like any chance our devious plot will be discovered. I mean, it sounds he probably thinks he's doing the right thing. I'm assuming, unless he's got some evil, unless he's evil inherently and knows that he's evil.
Nope, he's just straight up evil.
Okay, so in which case he probably wouldn't call it manipulation, I would think. But
Eh. Yeah,
unless he's
I
like,
literally explain what a gesh is in like the next sentence of Owen.
oh, okay, I didn't quite make. Okay, makes sense. So Baker's an interesting character. He's just a flat out Emperor Palpatine kind of bad guy.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
He only.
I would make him more evil then, because he's right now he's the Diet Coke of evil. Because he's like, maybe I'll even get him court-martialed. Ooh, court-martialed. Come on, man, you're evil. Go further than that. You want to get him in prison for life. You want him dead. He wants him dead, not court-martial would be my suggestion. If he's that evil, I hope fucking Flamel dies on this trip. In fact, I've got somebody on the crew to make sure it happens, even if he manages to do this whole thing right. Like, if you're going full out evil with Baker, I would go full out evil. If you're not, and you want to make him a little more interesting, a little more nuanced, not quite black and he's a beer. Like right now, he doesn't even seem like a the BPA is off the hook because Baker doesn't in any way represent the BPA. He's just a bad guy on the BPA. So the BPA is probably pretty good. If your point up until now has been that the BPA is plagued by pencil pushing, slow moving bureaucrats, that all gets erased with Baker. Because like, oh no, the BPA has just simply got a really bad guy that's probably fucking everything up, pulling the levers. It kind of neutralizes the idea that the BPA is this sort of organization, unless you're also going to do that. And keep in mind, the only other BPA members I know right now peripherally are Remy and Daphne. So food for thought. But I like this. If you're gonna go full dark, no stars, I'd go all the way with that. So help me understand the logic of this. This is where right now it looks like this whole gash thing, this erasing the memory is just a super convenient thing for the plot to get everybody off of Baker's trail. Am I understanding correctly that somehow again Ramona got put in this assignment? Other people besides Baker clearly know that she's on this assignment. Am I understanding that this magical spell is going to make it so nobody knows that Baker had anything to do with this, but actually he didn't anyway because it was Daphne as well and others on the.
Technically, a gesh means they can't speak about it, and they can't directly or indirectly speak about it, and their own brain will function as determining as what counts as direct or indirect.
And who are they? Who do you mean by they?
Whoever you use the gesh on.
Yeah, but who specifically are you talking about?
The people responsible for Ramona's paperwork, in this case.
So Daphne really doesn't know anything.
Of this specifically, no, she can't prove anything.
So does she actually believe Ramona does have this fake past? Doesn't she?
No.
Doesn't she know she's the girl who got nearly?
This is why I sent her away to Washington for 2 weeks, so she's not here for any of this.
Doesn't matter because the whole thing you're saying is that I trust this cannot lead back to me. Well, for sure it will eventually. Daphne knows.
No, it will lead back to the guy he put the gash on and end there. Because the guy with the gash can't tell anyone without dying.
Okay, but back up. Ramona is on this. This comes back to the sort of the logic of a few weeks ago. So explain to me Daphne's involvement in Ramona being on this trip.
None.
So Daphne doesn't have any clue that she's there.
No. She has gone off to Washington for 2 weeks, and Baker is screwing with her stuff while she's gone.
Okay, hang on. I got to go back to the previous chapter then. Who put Ramona on this?
Baker.
On this? Who did she talk to when she got the assignment?
Owen, Baker's assistant.
So she has no idea who Baker is, even though he indirectly put her on this assignment.
Yep.
The only person she's met is Owen.
Well, actually, I should probably make it someone other than Owen, because Owen will lead back to Baker, but yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to do the math. Okay. What chapter have we seen Daphne in before?
The one before this one, I think.
Okay, I'm just hoping the audience. I'm hoping the audience gets it. So what's happened here then is Ramona has been put on this job. But so okay, so there might be a few extra things to insert then into the previous chapter because Baker put her here, that's clear, but she has no idea who Baker is, so clearly there was an intermediary. There's some explaining that might be necessary because at that point I'm like, wait a minute. So she was put on, this is why I thought it was Daphne. So so Baker put her on this, but used an intermediary, so she doesn't know who Baker is. So somehow that has to be made clear. Um,
The whole guest speech was about that.
no, because the problem is you put it after the chapter. So I don't, my brain doesn't, and probably the average readers wouldn't retroactively reinsert into chapter 10 stuff they're now finding out after chapter 10. So what I mean by that is, so for example, let me just go back to here, just untangling it here. Um, okay. Okay, so okay, I haven't read the interlude yet. And I'm the reader reading chapter 10. He says, I'm going to call Daphne. I'm going to go to a we don't hear now. We don't hear, and I'm glad we don't hear any of the conversation really between Julius and Baker. So, what it sounds like, if I'm reading this cold, what it sounds like is when he gets on the phone with her, he says, I'm going to go clear this up with Daphne and talk to her. Then we get, sorry, I'll share with you what I'm looking at. I'm going to go call Daphne and find out how this happened. Now, I'm just going to read the lines that have to do with his conversation with Baker. I'm going to call Daphne and find out how this happened. Cut the shit, Baker. Where is Daphne? I want to know why the girl who screwed my last case is on my team with me, Baker, and I want to know why I was only informed just now.
Yeah. Just skip it back to where Julia shows back up again.
Yeah, well, Baker's ordered me to take you with me. So the problem is the way it looks now is he obviously wants to talk to Daphne because he assumes that she would be able to fill him in on this because that's also what we've been led to believe from the past, that Daphne would be his contact. The little bits of conversation that we do hear between him and Baker don't tell me, they still lead me to believe that Daphne, I would have no reason to believe anybody other than Daphne put him out on this. All I know is that he took a call with Baker because Daphne wasn't available, and because he and Daphne are both members of the board, Baker is simply saying, "Look, follow your orders. You've been told what to do." So I assume the logical thing that I'm assuming is that it's Daphne and or the board, of which Baker's a part, of course, but nothing in here tells me that this was specifically something that Baker did. And because I don't find out until the interlude, now let me go back and read this again with a different frame of mind.
Yeah, but I'm dropping the interlude right after I'm dropping chapter 10. So
Yeah, and again, this doesn't tell me that she wasn't okay. She'll be gone, but based on, I think when by not explaining it in the previous chapter, what you're hoping is that people will read this sentence. Of course, sir, Daphne Bruno will be occupied in Washington for the next 2 weeks. I still don't know that she didn't send him on this mission, or that she and or the board didn't. She's in Washington. I'm assuming she gave the order. Ramona's on the boat. Now I'm going to, I'm going to Washington.
so maybe Julia says something like, "I know Daphne didn't send her here. So what did you do?"
Yeah, it could be like that. What do you mean? What do you mean Daphne's in Washington? Definitely connect that last chapter. This. What do you mean? What isn't? Didn't she put her on this job? I need to talk. I need to talk to somebody who. I need to talk to the person who put her on this job. What do you mean Daphne had nothing to do with it? What? You sent her here? Just that alone would fix it. Something along that line. Because I think probably the audience, the reader, I think I won't say I know for sure, like I have a crystal ball. I think I suspect your audience is going to be confused by then talking about all this spell that's going to, so when Daphne gets back from, so there's that part, the whole idea that, it needs to be clarified that Daphne had absolutely nothing to do with this and that this was all Baker's thing in the previous chapter. But then the magical spell.
The magical spell is only there to keep them from getting discovered.
To keep who from getting to keep
Baker
Baker from
from
getting
being
discovered.
discovered.
Okay. So Daphne's going to come back from Washington, and if Baker gets his way, Ramona and or Julius are dead, or he's in jail and whatever else like this. She will, of course, find out what happened. It would be inconceivable that she wouldn't. And so how is that going to be? How is that going to be explained to her?
Um, what's the word?
And the rest of the board, by the way, but especially Daphne.
Um, what's it? What's the thing when you have plausible deniability? Baker's
Yeah, but
here.
what are they? Fair, but what are they going to say happened? Who are they going to say when Daphne asks the $1 million question, which she most certainly will? Who the hell sent Ramona with Julius? Who gave the order? Is everybody just going to go, I don't know?
Pretty much.
Okay, but she's not going to put up with that. There's no way Daphne's going to, unless that's your plan. Daphne's going to come back and she's going to go on a hunt to find out what happened.
Oh yeah, we're gonna keep digging. But the point is, Baker is one of the problems in the BPA, and he does stuff like this. But we don't. But there's never enough to prove that he did it. But there's enough that you always know he did it. If you get what I mean.
Okay. So Daphne, okay, before this chapter, Daphne had a big long conversation with him about
Being careful of the
how,
board members because they're trying to
yeah.
screw him over.
So like if I'm Daphne now,
Mhm.
the number one thing, by the way, Daphne goes to Washington right as Julius gets put on this assignment. So if I'm Daphne, first of all, I'm going to say, fuck no, I'm not going to Washington because I know what's going on with Julius and I need to be eyes on all the time. And if I'm in Washington, for sure I'm eyes on. Like this is the challenge is that you did such a brilliant job of setting this thing. Here's where I'm going with this. Get rid of the magical spell, problem solved, unless there's some really important
Yeah, you
reason
seem
for
to
it.
be weirdly perseverating on that.
Not weirdly, it's because it's creating massive logic holes from this point forward. Because what's happened is that it's well, let's put it this way: it's just created a big fence that if Daphne has to get around, that could be interesting. But Daphne, Daphne clearly this thing with Julius is super important to her. If I'm Daphne, it's in my top three, if not my number one priorities right now. No matter how many other things she's got on the go, she clearly cares about Julius. She's clearly interested in making sure this assignment goes well. The last thing she wants to do is fuck it up. If I'm Daphne and I'm any good at my job at all, I have got I have got Julius on speed dial to check in with him. I've got every detail in front of me of the assignment, and I'm checking in with the team every single day. Or she's shitty at her job, period.
Few
Right.
few points on
And
that. They're going to a place without cell phone reception. Second, her bosses who literally write her paycheck and can cut the funding for the BPA at any minute are literally telling her to come to Washington.
fair. Oh, I'm not saying she shouldn't go. I'm saying that there's no way she goes and she's not thinking night and day about Julius. I can't believe it because that's what you've set up. I'm not saying that because I have a vested interest in Daphne being a person I'm a certain way. What I'm saying is your previous chapters have set this up to be extremely important. Not the most important thing to Daphne, but certainly it's in her head a lot of the time. So the idea that she would go to Washington for 2 weeks, that this whole next thing would happen, and that she wouldn't at least be checking in periodically while the thing is taking place, and then come back and not go to the ends of the earth and not be able to sleep at night until she discovered what happened with Baker. And again, maybe that's what you're doing, in which case, brilliant. Um, is she in the next chapter? Will Daphne be completely absent and or radio silent the whole time they're up north?
Yeah, because there's no cell phone up there.
No, what I mean by that is not an actual communication, but are we going to get some scenes with her where she's thinking about Julius, worrying about him, wanting to get any information at all? Hears that Ramona accidentally hears that Ramona went and went, what? Like, does
Oh yeah, we
she?
get another interlude with her.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. Um, it just seems okay. So there's part the Daphne thing was part of it. The other part of me is like, I'm assuming. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming that Ramona and what went down with Matthias and the whole revelation potentially that well, the board obviously knows, and it's given away by Baker here. The board seems to obviously know that Julius had heard Matthias say something about the Alhoun coming. So obviously that's a thing. And I can't believe this guy. His response here is a whole other thing here. Like he's just being he's being unusually cavalier about aliens from the other side of the galaxy. Preposterous. It's your job to track down it's the BPA, I would assume. It's the BPA's job to take every threat seriously until it's proven not to be a threat. So I don't know here if Baker represents the whole board or if this is just Baker's point of view, but it feels like Baker doesn't seem evil. He just seems incredibly stupid, is what he seems, because he actually thinks that just getting rid of Daphne is like, okay, nobody will find out. Of course they will. Daphne, if nobody else is going to find out. Meanwhile, for sure, Ramona's on more people's radar than just Daphne's, given the high profile nature of what she's been doing the last few days or weeks. Plus, there's no way that this entire board, I don't think, I'm telling you, but I can't believe that the BPA board just got a credible threat from one of their best agents, even if he is on probation.
It's not a credible threat. It's a threat from someone who has basically it's a threat from a hobo who's been running around murdering people.
Sure, but here's where I'm going with that.
Also, it's about a threat from about a group of people who literally exist on the other side of the universe. There's been no corroborating evidence of any kind, despite them double checking.
Right, but if somebody yells gun in an airport, everybody moves and every cop comes running because they have to determine if it's a credible threat. That's what I'm saying. And so, in other words, it's not a credible threat because it came from Matthias. That's not a reason they would immediately dismiss it to me. Not if they're a serious organization. If the BPA, if their first reaction to like, hey, Matthias said the Alhoun might be coming. If the premier organization on the planet devoted to making sure these kinds of things are not actually threats, if their first reaction is, it was Matthias who said it, fuck him, pass the salt, then I can't take them seriously as an organization.
They did check it. That was in Daphne's chapter.
Okay, remind me.
Well, basically, they checked deep space telemetry to see if any ships are coming. They they visited oracles, like, magical oracles, divination, and all that shit. They got nothing. Basically, they checked every single source that they had available to them to determine if the Alhoun were coming to Earth, and they found nothing.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe, what chapter was that? Remind me what.
Before this one.
Okay, hang tight.
Just go to Daphne's chapter and type in Alhoun. Should be there. Unless I'm horribly misremembering something. Yeah, just... Just do find and then Alhoun.
Unfortunately, this thing doesn't.
Excuse me. Do we have any information on the Alhoun? Daphne shook her head.
We're still waiting on a preliminary
report. So I changed it.
Once we have a better idea, we can address. Like, that feels real. That kind of a response feels real because, yeah, if she were to say, I think I would have flagged that before. If she were to say, oh yeah, we've literally exhausted all of our options and determined there's no threat, that's a big potential deal, because it's one of the juiciest things you dropped is like, should we be worried about the Alhoun thing that Matthias? I'd be like, what? That would have been great to see, because it sounds like a potential world ender. So,
yeah, you cut out there. So, did you say anything important? Because cut out there.
Yeah, I was just saying that because you've put to the audience in a really delicious way, you've put the idea of whether the potential invasion by the Alhoun potentially annihilating or seriously impacting the human race. There's nothing in the story more interesting to me than that right now, and that's been true ever since I heard that. That Julius heard this from. So I'm thinking, okay, everybody, someone just yelled gun in the airport. We are not doing anything else until we affirm, yeah, maybe Matthias is full of shit. I can understand why some people might have the attitude Baker has. It really, we're going to take a threat from this freak show seriously? To which point anybody in the board would say, of course we are, because the BPA, like cops in an airport, take every threat seriously until we've ruled it out. So yes, it may turn out to be bullshit. Matthias might just be a crackpot, but we would never in a million years just go because it's Matthias. And so to me, I'm looking forward to sort of seeing that. It's sort of like I can see him discrediting him, but really he thinks aliens from the other side of the galaxy are attacking us. And all you would need to do here, suggestion, is have Owen, who I like. Owen's, and he says, forget it. Aliens from the other side of the galaxy are coming to attack us while they're already at war. And I feel like Owen would say, well, we are still waiting for the preliminary report, sir. Fuck that. Come on. We don't really think this is happening, do we? Get me my cheesecake. All it would take is Owen, like putting that in here. Like he does it sort of here. Are you sure? But are you sure comes after him. This is just a desperate attempt from Flamel to keep his job. The Alhoon are meaningless. Ignore them. Are you sure, sir? I like that. But my suggestion would be mention like the preliminary report or something that, well, almost, sir, right? Like we don't actually know if there isn't an Alhoon attack coming. And he's like, come on, get serious. I don't mind that, but that might just take just a little more juice in that one sentence.
Just to say something about Owen, he's disciplined and loyal, but he's not submissive, like at all.
Perfect.
He could literally,
Perfect.
he could rip Baker's mind apart, and Baker wouldn't be unable to stop him. He could leave Baker
I
a
love
drooling
that.
mess. Baker literally gets away with all of his shit because of Owen, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
The moment Owen abandons Baker is the chapter he dies.
And the good thing about doing something like, waiting on the report and things like that, is it drags up the suspense, because I think the audience, no matter how much they're enjoying your reading, and they will, because I think the way you're, especially this chapter, especially the way it starts, or sorry, the previous one, it's rock solid. It's super fun to read, the stuff going on between Julius and Ramona. No matter how fun that is to reading, they're like, okay. So what's the deal with the Alhoon? And so that's the part that makes this interlude so exciting. Here's my point in bringing up the whole thing with Daphne and stuff. It feels like you're creating a lot of work for yourself that may or may not be necessary. But to me, my suggestion would be, rather than saying we're going to put hexes on people and stuff and create this thing for Daphne to, what it feels like is to the sophisticated.
Stick with more vague, like, I've taken care of everything, sir.
Well, because I feel like the more sophisticated reader is going to read this and go, oh, he put in a magic thing so that nobody knows that he did it. But we all know that Daphne's going to eventually start asking questions and she's not going to get answers. And we can see from a mile away that's just dropped in there to make it, so that Daphne takes a long time to just have him do it. Just have him give the order. And when Daphne comes back, he doesn't need to hide that he did it. He doesn't need to show that he didn't do it. All he needs is a good reason for why he sent her. Occam's razor, simplest solution is usually the best one. I don't need curses and people to have magic tricks on him. Don't make Baker such a pussy. Just have him say, yeah, I did it. Fuck you. There was a reason I did it too. And he just figure out a good...
Like, what argument could he have to send an 18-year-old with no training onto a dangerous mission that could be potentially life-threatening?
The argument you already have, which is she's a fucking super whatever. Like, to me, it's
so
reckless.
Julius. Of course. So is every single other person on that mission, but they also have training.
Yep.
They literally don't hire you if you don't have superpowers.
Sure.
Having superpowers isn't an argument. It's the bare minimum.
So here's the deal. Daphne's eventually going to ask the question anyway. What's he going to say then?
Nothing. He's probably going to whine a bit because he's getting arrested for abusing his power.
Perfect. Then why do a magic spell that nobody does? This is my whole point. What I'm saying is, if what he's afraid of is getting caught and somebody asking him why he did it, well, the reality is going to get caught and somebody's going to ask anyway. and it's not going to take long. Daphne, after 2 weeks in Washington, she'll come back and she's going to ring his fucking bell till he gives an answer. So my
Well, the
suggest
whole
like
point of the
good
magic spell
reason,
is that she can't find out who gave the order, only where it's.
right?
Yeah, she can
But she's
find
going
the
to be ringing,
symptoms. She can't find the cause. That's the whole point of the
right?
spell.
Fair. My point is that she's going to be asking the questions. So, um, no, yeah, I'm not trying to be provocative here, but it feels like why not just give him a reason to do it? I recognize there's no good reason to do it, of course, which is why eventually Daphne's going to go, "Were you fucking serious? An 18-year-old on this trip?" But he can come up with, you could come up with all kinds of things, definitely to do with her abilities. I mean, I think she was supposed to go to jail. What? You didn't put her in jail? You sent her on this mission? Well, given the kind of job it was, I thought, what can we lose? Let's put the girl on it. Maybe she could be good for us. Like of course it's crazy. Of course it's bullshit. Of course anything he says, she's going to see right through. But all he needs is a reason to do it, and he can because he's on the board.
Hmm.
See what this is doing now is it shows that Baker has absolutely no power of persuasion whatsoever. He has to rely on magic tricks. He's like the worst villain in the world because he's got no actual strength or ability. He has no ability to stand up to a group of people. He certainly shouldn't be on the board because all he does is these magic tricks to get people to forget stuff.
His
And
shtick is political connections.
mhm. Yeah, but this is a guy who doesn't even have the courage to make a decision and come up with a good reason to do it. Like this guy's got to be smarter than that. This guy's got to be able to, with his connections, like show him being political. If he's got political networks and he knows how to move people, then I would do that rather than him hoodwinking people and doing magic tricks that eventually just fall apart anyway.
Hmm.
Um, would be my suggestion because I can think of a legitimate basis for sending her on the trip, even though it's ridiculous.
Sure, let's hear it.
Which is yeah, that she has, she should be in jail. Ramona should be in jail. But she's clear the very thing that Julius is pissed off at her about, the fact that she can take a guy like Matthias apart, tells me that no matter what we're facing out in the middle of wherever we're going. Oh, and that leads to another question I have to remember to ask you. I want to see, hey, we thought, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Let's see if, what this girl can do. However you jazz that up, there's a better explanation in terms of beefing up than that, but there's a legitimate thing that could be worked there. He sent her out there to die, and he sent her out there to fuck up Julius. We know the real reason, and Daphne's going to figure it out in about 2 seconds. So any reason he gives, but the idea that she's got to go on a wild goose chase for the whole story, trying to figure out the answers that she can't get.
So the
And
argument
by the
is
way,
she killed uh, a a vampire, so she should be able to handle a low risk level mission.
yeah, and not just a vampire. Keep in mind, she cleaned house in a graveyard full of ghouls. Yeah, I want her on my team, 100%. But I mean, it's insane. And keep in mind, all Daphne eventually has to do is make contact with Julius at any point in the story, and he'll tell her that Baker sent. Unless you're putting a gas on him too.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the first, if I'm Daphne, the second she checks in with Julius to find out how he's doing, she's going to find out Baker did this.
Hmm.
So my suggestion would be just he just did it. He exerted his executive privilege of being on the board, and he sent her. And if, his reasons are flimsy, and they're as flimsy as the ones I'm giving you. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? She showed. I thought hey Daphne, you want to send everybody to jail. You wanted to send her to jail. Well, guess what? Like, make him show that he's pretending to be magnanimous and better than Daphne, saying, well, you want to put a super weapon like that in jail? Daphne, fly at it, man. You follow the book and stuff. But I saw somebody who had the potential to help our team. So maybe I care more about Julius and his operation than you do, Daphne, because I saw a girl you were ready to stick into a hole. And I thought maybe we can use her. Absolutely. A man, he's Amanda Waller, or he's pretending to be,
Yeah.
right? Suicide Squad.
That's actually relatively standard practice for the BBA already. No,
Yeah.
it's more throw bodies onto the fire to douse the fire.
And I can even see Daphne saying, you sent a girl who's a reckless killing machine and doesn't even know what, and doesn't have any regard for rules. You sent her to be with Julius. I said, of course I did. They're the same person. We already have Julius on the team, who's already a maverick who does whatever the fuck he wants. So you're worried that she's going to be like that? Everybody on the team is like that. Um, and of course, Daphne goes, Baker, you son of a bitch. I know what you did, and I know why you did it. You know, but I love this thing at the end. I love the whole idea. As long as we've just got a little reminder about what's actually happening with there's is still an ongoing investigation being done about the Alhoun, and he's just kind of writing it all off. What's his motivation, by the way, besides wine and cheesecake? Like, what's his grand plan?
Um, shit, I didn't actually give him one. Mostly money and power. Money and power.
Okay.
I guess in this case, his grand plan is to basically own the BPA.
Okay, and for what purpose? Like, does he have any purpose, or is it just simply to
Because
own
it
things?
gives him a lot of political power that he can use to extract it. I didn't really plan this guy's like he's not planning to take over the world. He just wants he's like every other politician. He's planning to get himself into the best position possible so he can milk it for all it's worth.
Okay, okay, that's fair. So he's not. It's not that he's Emperor Palpatine. He's not really evil. Evil. He's just a corrupt politician.
Yeah. Well, he kind of is
Okay.
evil. He goes and joins with one of the villains later on. But yeah, he's just a politician. He,
So I would maybe make that a little plain. Think about just give a little more thought to that because right now he's basically saying, I sent this woman I sent this woman to her death.
mhm.
Effectively, she'll certainly die. Hopefully Julius will too, or at least go to jail. Now get me my cheesecake. And I'm like, what is this guy's what is this guy's motivation? Why does he want to do this? I don't understand. I mean, I don't like a lot of people too, but I don't want to kill them and another innocent person.
Well, he's
You know,
not
like
killing her. He's just thanks you on a
right,
mission. If she dies, that's not his fault.
right.
Humans,
He's killing her
yeah.
effectively. Yeah, so like Hitler saying, I didn't put the Jews in the gas chamber. Everybody who reads this will see this as he is taking in some level directly or indirectly responsibility for the death of a girl and the at least imprisonment of Julius. Why? What is this guy? Why is this guy got such a gigantic Empire State Building size hard on for Julius? And to the point that he's potentially murdering people directly or indirectly.
Hmm.
Innocent people.
Because Julius keeps screwing him
Think
over.
about it. No pressure.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
what's that?
Julius keeps screwing him
Yeah,
over.
no, think definitely. Yeah, still like
Yeah.
so he because when I look back at him now, my suggestion would be give some more thought to Baker because you've given him a really prominent role. You've made him the bad guy of the story so far. And if he's the bad guy and he's ready to kill people and get rid of people just so that he, can eat his cheesecake in peace, the audience might have a problem. Might be looking for something a little deeper than that. And it can't just be because he doesn't I don't think it can be just because he likes Julius because again, I doubt anybody who's reading this will going to go, yeah, if I don't like somebody, I would be willing to kill them and a friend. Like, what? You need to go to jail, dude. So this guy is evil. And I want to know how deep that evil well goes. And with Palpatine, to me, as far as I'm concerned, Palpatine was also a super, super weak villain.
Oh,
He had a
he was
he had a fan.
he had a great start up until the end of the Clone Wars. Then I think all the lightning to the face made him stupid.
Well, here's what I would love to go out for a drink with Palpatine and say, hey, like it's Phantom Menace. It's the beginning of Phantom Menace, and say, hey, Palpatine, it's been a long time. Hey, can we talk? Sure, yeah, no problem. What's going on at the Senate? I hear the Jedi are having a good time running it and everything else like that. Well, yeah, the Jedi have become kind of an archaic and crested institution. They've kind of lost their focus, and so actually, what I've decided is that the entire bureaucratic system of the Republic should be replaced by an empire that I will run, and then everything will run smoothly, and we'll have a beautiful infrastructure and city. Oh, really? And what's your goal? What's your reason for doing this? Unlimited power. I'm like, oh fuck, really, Lucas? That's your thing? When it comes right down to it, this guy who's got this brilliant plan to kind of re-engineer the entire social and political fabric of the universe, his motivation is unlimited power. I'm like, oh fuck. You've got like the bad guy from Aladdin is the emperor. Give me a fucking
I'm
break.
kind of sad that he didn't go for the original plan, which was to eliminate the Jedi. Because if they'd done it right, they could have actually pulled it off. Created an anti-Jedi culture with a bunch of Sith in the center. But
Yeah.
no,
Well,
they instead decided to piss off literally every single planet in the entire universe at the same time.
and why? Because the guy's obvious. So basically, what it comes down to is Palpatine. Palpatine's motivation was nothing more complicated than a childish god complex. And I'm like, that's the whole thing.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with my.
Like at least Thanos, you look at a guy versus Thanos. Thanos, why do you want to wipe out half the universe's population? Have you seen what happens on these planets, Paul? Eventually, it saturates to the point where life is tough for everybody because it runs out of resources. I'm like, Thanos, I get it. You're a three-dimensional villain. Good job, Marvel. Emperor Palpatine, what's your motivation? Unlimited power. Oh fuck. And this is my like I love Star Wars and I'm like, ugh. So Baker has got this, but Palpatine's plan was brilliant. It was flat out Hitler. It was turning a democracy into a dictatorship. Awesome. Seen it before. It works. Good for you. Unlimited power is a shitty, shallow motivation. So when I look at Baker, I'm thinking, what are you up to? And it can be you I think what you said is perfect. That the idea that slowly but surely he's trying to like here's a couple of really obvious ones. He's in with the Alhoun, or he just wants to, be king of the world. I mean, I'd like to know more than that, but at least that's better than cheesecake.
Yeah, I considered having him join the Alhoun later on, but the problem with being a politician is he's an opportunist. So
Yeah.
he'll jump on whatever boats works for him.
And that's perfect. If it, like so in other words, his motivation may be nothing more complicated than survival. I can relate to that. That's the most primitive instinct of all. He wants to stay at the top of the food chain as long as humanly possible. And when the Alhoun come along and offer him whatever fucking crazy great things they're gonna offer him, oh yeah, I'm jumping ship not just from the BPA but from Earth to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Right. So
He starts with the BPA, then he goes and joins this guy called Armstrong, and then he goes to the Alhoun.
and especially he can grow into a god complex, and I'd be okay with that. Like the idea that this is just about a guy who never wants to die. Maybe he's on a personal level, totally apart from his politics. He's terrified of dying. He hates death. He hates the getting old, and so he's doing
That could
everything
be
he
a
can.
very easy reason he hates Julius. Julius doesn't die from old age. Barely dies from damage.
Okay, now we're talking. Ooh, Hayden, that's awesome. So that kind of an idea where he does have like deep down he's afraid of dying. He doesn't want to become irrelevant. There's only one thing worse for old people than the idea of dying, and that's becoming irrelevant, becoming unnecessary, unneeded, forgotten. This guy doesn't want to be forgotten. He wants to make his mark, and he definitely doesn't want to die, which I love that. He hates Julius because he's eternal or the next best thing to it. So, of course, he wants to. Julius is a walking reminder that he's not like Julius. I love that. Hold on to that. But that and that's all Baker needs. Baker doesn't need a big elaborate, but he needs something I can identify with and I can relate to. Like, what's this guy about? Like, so in other words, if in this moment when we first see him, he's looking in the mirror and he's applying something to his face to take the wrinkles away, or he's reading a book that's all about how to stave off aging, which is hilarious, but also relatable. And he's eating a certain diet or whatever it is. Like this guy's, he never says a word about
Oh
it.
no,
But
he doesn't do diets. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he's 800 pounds or whatever. Oh, so that's hilarious. A guy who doesn't want to die, that's this fat. Like I feel like Owen would have a couple things to say. He says, go get me my Diet Coke, right? Or whatever it is like that. He goes, maybe should I get you a glass of water instead? Enough of your insolence. Whatever it is. But have fun with it. But the idea
And he drives around on a little scooter thing.
He's basically Dr. Evil, but I like that on a human level without the, totally apart from how many laughs he can get out with, and definitely get the laughs out of it. The idea that this is a guy who fears death and irrelevance, obsolescence. He doesn't want to be shuffled off to the corner, especially if he's older. His worst fear is them saying, well, here's your gold watch, Baker. Thanks for working with us. Maybe he's this close to retirement and he doesn't want to retire. And that's instantly relatable. Old and becoming irrelevant. I love that. and it's his last crack at the can. I mean, he's been working up the top, up the food chain at the BPA to get to the top. This is perfect, actually, and I love where you're going with this. If he is the ultimate example of bureaucratic, bleh, and he's the guy in the middle of it all. He clearly doesn't take threats about the Alhoun series. Like this guy doesn't give a fuck about what the BPA clearly are supposed to be doing. Now it makes sense that he would just so easily dismiss the Alhoun because he's so focused, obsessed with his career goals and getting to the top of this food chain, um, that he's willing to burn everybody. Ramona, now him wanting to get rid of Ramona, it's like, holy, this guy has become obsessed to the point that he's not even interested in protecting human life. And how ironic is that when that's the whole BPA's organizational reason for being, is to protect the human race. Baker personally represents everything that's the opposite of the BPA. And it all comes down to a childlike fear that I'm like, oh, I kind of feel sorry for him because he just doesn't want to drift into the horizon and be forgotten. He doesn't want to die.
That's also another reason to beat the BPA. You know, magic to slow the aging process.
Okay. Okay. Now you got a villain. Like this is so that's the value of talking about this is sort of like, and I totally get
Hey,
it. Like
that
I do
means
that.
that instead of having that random guy kidnap Julius in an attempt to extract eternal youth, I can have Baker do it.
Baker's on a mission. Oh, imagine if Baker's trying to get the secret to living forever. Like he doesn't just resent Julius. If he had his way, he'd put Julius in a wine press and squeeze all the eternal life out of him and like give it like, oh, okay, now we're talking because now I didn't even see that coming. I'm thinking that
Really, that was
Baker's
an
just
episode I had like all the way back when I first started the Philosopher's Stone stick.
oh, I know, I love this. The whole idea that while all this stuff is going on with Alhoun and Ramona and Julius, Baker, Baker is just secretly trying to rise to the top of this food chain and fuck whoever he has to fuck to get there and fuck over.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to that childish impulse that everybody who reads it will relate to. You've now made a villain that not only has an actual legitimate motivation for what he's
Well,
doing.
two, a career climber and fear of death.
Yeah, absolutely. So too beautiful. I love this multi-dimensional character. But not only have you created a character I believe in and understand, but I actually on some root level empathize with. And I'm like, he's still evil. I still don't like him,
Well,
but
everyone
I'm like,
understands not wanting to die and wanting to get a promotion, so.
yeah, and not wanting to be forgotten, right? Not wanting to be considered. Okay, you're okay. Bye, boomer. Like that whole thing. Like this is that guy. Like, and and that's another reason he probably wants to get rid of Ramona. She's just another version of Julius. Like he can't handle like there's two of them. Ugh,
Oh yeah,
get rid
it's
of
going
him.
to get worse because Ramona is going to end up with the lifespan of a tree.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, before that, she'll think she'll have the lifespan of what lives for like 40 years. I don't know. Yeah.
Chapter 10 plus interlude. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm excited now about Baker. This is really, really cool. So that's basically it, Hayden. It was with chapter 10. I would center the conversation between Dick and Ramona on de-escalating angry Ramona and helping her. Just a little bit of an insight. Doesn't have to take long. Julius comes back thinking she's going to blow up. She doesn't. She's agreeable. He doesn't understand why. Gives the dirty evil eye to Dick. What did you say? The end. Conversation with Remy done. And now this interlude with Baker could be a tasty. Now you've got some good stuff because now you have the opportunity to reveal through his action, not just what he says, that this is kind of a guy obsessed with power. Maybe he's got a couple of little, he's got like one trophy on his like for, BPA agent of the month, whatever. And he picks it up and he polishes it.
Hmm.
Like little things along that. There's little tells, little giveaways that you don't have to have people talking necessarily. Have a bit of that. But I want to see this guy and realize, okay, this is life is not easy for Julius, and you've given us this beautiful window into the thing that may be a big part of that. We may find out that Baker has been fucking with Julius's career for years. Who knows?
Well, Julius was here
It's hard for
before
me to believe.
Baker, so remember that.
Oh, cool. Now Baker's been here how long?
I don't know. How old do we want to make this guy?
I mean, I don't know. Whatever you think, but
Let's put
like I
20
could see
years and call him about a 70.
Yeah. Okay. So for again for years, yeah, I like that. 70, he's definitely past retirement age, kind of thing like that. If he's just a mere mortal, but yeah, I mean, you have an option, you have possibilities that maybe this isn't the first time. It's hard, actually, it would be hard for me to believe, given their apparent history, Baker and Julius, hard for me to believe that this is the first time Baker is going to get caught, is what it feels like by Daphne mainly and or Julius. But I bet you there's subtle little ways that Baker's been at least making life difficult for Julius all these years, and Julius is just now starting to realize it, or not.
Hmm. Or
He always knew
Julius
Baker.
didn't even notice. That would be funny.
Yeah, like he never. It's one thing for Dick and him to not like Baker, but they might just like him because he's a pencil pushing geek in the main office who just likes to likes to make everything difficult. But they didn't know just how seriously fucked up Baker was until this story. I love the idea that this thing that Baker's doing potentially exposes him for the first time, and despite his obsession with getting a promotion, like he really slits his own throat. My is what it sounds like Baker's going to do. Like if Baker's the kind of guy who's been a climber and secretly trying to rise to the top, it feels like that he went one step too far by sending Ramona on this trip, and it's all going to come crashing down like a house of cards on him. Right when the Alhuna, are on the verge of arriving, and he thinks maybe I can jump onto that ship with them, and so Baker becomes this really desperate, opportunistic um, climber.
Hmm.
I'm liking him a lot.
The big thing I want to remind you is that for the first four, I guess, seasons, the Alhunu are
Hmm.
kind of like um what's the word, like are not really all their threats. It's mostly like disturbing them from trying to set up a beachhead on Earth, rather than like a direct confrontation. Lots more skirmishes. Then it turns into a full-out slugfest.
Love that.
Mostly so I can just set up the rest of the universe in peace.
Love it.
Mhm.
I love watching your story evolve. It's just so cool, and this is a cool thing too. Yeah, you're like me. You're like, I just want to get this thing written. But this with Baker, giving him not just because what you never want, any writer really wants, is for the reader to go, whoa, whoa, hang on. Did you read your own story? Because these characters like are really easy to pull apart, and the bad guy doesn't really seem to have motivation. I'm not saying that's true for your story. I think you've got very increasingly well developed characters and fantastic style and dialogue. But then again, because you've established your story so well up until now, because you've written those chapters so well, it's just going to become more obvious. Not what you've done wrong. It's not about that. It's about, okay, yeah, Baker's standing out a bit as somebody who needs a lot more sort of development. So
Hmm.
have fun with it. I'm going to send you the notes right now.
All right. So just
And
one more quick
yeah,
review. Like, we're switching chapter 10 up a little with more explaining of what Baker's doing and more Ramona being pissed at Julius and Dick explaining Julius's tragic backstory.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be the whole enchilada. I might, if it was me, I might say, well, he's been around for a long. I would even have maybe Ramona comment. Well, he's been doing this a long time, and he's lost a lot of partners, and he's kind of lost his love for it. He goes, that's fine, but that doesn't excuse him for being the guy that he is. Well, there's more to the story than that, Ramona, because you're able to tell everything that we need to know about it. Brief thing about his parents. I mean, it can literally be half a page. Dick starts to go into it, but he tells just enough for Ramona and us as the readers to go, oh shit, that's really sad. Oh my God. And then Julius ends the phone call and comes back. So we don't get the full story. We get just enough to know that his parents left, abandoned him. And that's all
Not
we hear.
they didn't abandon him. They had him for an experiment.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So however you can make that sound, I mean, consider the possibility that they gave him, they gave him up for, to science or whatever else like that. Because putting him in an experiment might or might not be enough for Ramona to go, okay, well, yeah, my
Well,
my
they
parents
erased
put
his
me.
soul and replaced it with a philosopher's stone.
Mhm. And you can you can choose to give us that detail, which might make us go, oh, what's that about? You're right. It can distract us. I'm not even. I suddenly I go from sympathizing with Julius to going, wait a minute, what's that about the Philosopher's Stone? You're like, no, 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 stay with Julius. We're supposed to be feeling bad for Julius. Okay, then don't tell me about a Philosopher's Stone because now I'm interested in that.
His parents
So
kept
what
him in
I
the house for 16 years while they experimented on him. How's that?
yeah yeah you could do like let's just say his parents locked him in the basement. Oh, you mean Harry Potter style? No, much worse than that. They did let's just say experiments on him, and the reader's going to go, "That's fucking weird. What does that mean?" But you're not going to tell us. You're just going to make us go, "What's that about?" But I feel bad for him because no kid should have that happen to us. Give him his age, give us his age too, if you can. Like, how young?
107, I think.
Yeah, like when he started when he was 6 or whatever. Like said, like, oh my god, like make it sound, my suggestion would be to make it sound vague, like some vague form of abuse, but don't give us any details because all we're looking for is enough for Ramona to feel sorry for him. So the last thing you want to do is distract the reader's attention from anything other than just feeling bad for Julius, and Ramona kind of opening her heart. She's just opening her heart a little bit, but it's enough for her to say, okay, I'll go on this journey with Julius, fine.
Hmm.
And then they're gonna get into probably more fights and arguments and get to closer and closer and scrap some more. And by the end, they're gonna be good partners. But it took them all this skirmishing beside. But the number one thing I have to give you 100% props for, Hayden, is how you're really giving Ramona is a completely revitalized person from a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, she was just sort of wandering through the script, letting everybody talk about her and doing things around her. Now she feels like she's a real person, actively engaged, going to be a vital part of this team,
Mhm.
which I love. Female readers will love it. Male readers will love it.
Okay.
And they'll talk about how progressive you are.
Oh, lovely. I'll be honest. I already don't want those people reading it.
No, but unfortunately, that's well, not unfortunately.
Yeah.
More and more, that's just going to be the way people.
Yeah.
I don't mean the crazy way that people are. We'll balance out as a
Mhm.
society eventually, and
Yeah.
hopefully, we'll healthy PC. Anyway, enjoy.
Will do.
Excited to see what happens, and I'll wait for you to tell me what you want me to read next week.
Uh,
This time next week work?
yeah, this definitely works. Will Tuesday going? I'm kind of curious because I've noticed this happens a couple of times where you want to change times on Mondays. Would Tuesdays be a more what's the word? Stable time?
I think Mondays will work from now on.
Okay.
What's happened is probably the last 4 weeks with Monday. We've had, for some reason, they're supposed to have production meetings on Sunday, and they do the same thing. They say, oh, let's do it. Let's do it Monday. I says, I can't do it. I have a student on Monday. Well, we'll make sure the meetings don't run late, and they always end up running late. So I said, look, just change it. So it looks like they're going to change it back to Sunday. So this shouldn't be an issue starting next week.
Okay. Good to know. Um, yeah, we'll see. I think I think I have enough to hopefully do the chapter properly without you. My main concern though is no matter what, next week is the very last week I'll be able to send this chapter to you because the week after that it has to go out.
Okay.
Yeah, for the schedule. So I might send it to
Sounds
you
good.
next week, but because that is the last day we would have available to do this.
Gotcha.
Oh, one last question. Did you see the new Puss in Boots movie?
No, I haven't, but I'm going to. Yeah.
You should.
Were you? Was it you and me that were talking about it last time?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
so
No, I'm
good.
dying to see it. I'm dying to see
So
it.
good. Okay. See you next week. Go see Puss in Boots. It's great.
Okay. Sounds
Bye.
good. Take care, Hayden.